The ocean has always been a place of silence. Even during war, most of the sea remains untouched, calm, endless, indifferent to human conflict. But every once in a generation, something is built that disturbs that silence. Something so powerful, so imposing, that even the ocean seems to step aside. In the mid-20th century, that disturbance had a name: USS New Jersey. Before satellites watched the seas, before missiles crossed continents, before wars were fought from screens in control rooms, there was steel, there was fire, there was thunder. And no ship embodied those forces more completely than this American dreadnought. When USS New Jersey moved across the water, she did not simply sail. She announced herself. Her hull cut through waves like a blade, her superstructure rose like a fortress, and her guns, those massive 16-inch cannons, waited silently, capable of unleashing destruction across distances once thought impossible. This was not merely a warship. This was a statement, a declaration that the United States Navy intended to dominate not just the surface of the oceans, but the very concept of naval warfare itself. In grainy black and white footage, we see her form emerge from mist and smoke. Sailors move across her decks in practiced rhythm. Flags snap in the wind. Gun barrels point toward distant horizons. The footage is old. The quality is rough. But the power is unmistakable. Because some machines do not lose their presence with age. USS New Jersey was one of those machines. To understand why this ship still captures attention decades after her guns fell silent, we must return to a world on the brink of collapse, the late 1930s. Europe was burning. Asia was at war. Navies across the world were racing to build faster, stronger, deadlier ships. The age of the battleship was reaching its peak and possibly its final form. For the United States, the question was simple. If war came to the oceans, what kind of ship would be needed to win it? The answer would become the Iowa-class battleships, and among them, USS New Jersey would rise as the most battle-tested of them all. The idea behind New Jersey was not subtle. She was designed to do three things better than any battleship before her. 1. Hit harder. 2. Move faster. 3. Survive longer. At over 45,000 tons, she carried armor thick enough to withstand direct hits from enemy battleships. Her speed, over 33 knots, allowed her to escort aircraft carriers, something older battleships could never do. And her guns? Each 16-inch shell weighed as much as a small car and could travel more than 20 miles before impact. When those guns fired, the recoil alone could physically push the ship sideways. Sailors described the sensation as the ocean punching back. But USS New Jersey was not built merely for show. She was built for a war that would span oceans, islands, and continents. A war where naval supremacy would determine victory or defeat. A war where firepower still mattered. As the United States entered World War II, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the urgency to complete ships like New Jersey intensified. Shipyards became factories of war. Steel flowed endlessly. Workers labored around the clock. Mistakes were unacceptable. Delays were dangerous. Every rivet driven into New Jersey carried urgency. Every weld carried expectation. She was launched in December 1942, sliding into the water as one of the most powerful warships ever constructed. When she was commissioned in 1943, the world was already deep in conflict, and USS New Jersey was about to step directly into it. In the Pacific, battles were fought across thousands of miles. Islands with unfamiliar names became strategic prizes. Naval engagements were no longer just ship-to-ship duels. They were complex operations involving air power, amphibious landings, and relentless logistics. In this environment, USS New Jersey found her purpose. She did not hunt alone. She sailed with carrier task forces. She protected them. She supported them. And when needed, she became their hammer. In archival footage, we see her guns firing toward distant shorelines. Each blast produces a flash brighter than the sun, followed by a shockwave that ripples across the water. These were not warning shots. These were messages, sent in steel and fire, to anyone foolish enough to challenge the fleet she protected. Enemy positions disappeared beneath clouds of smoke and debris. For troops watching from shore, the sound alone was enough to inspire awe. For those on the receiving end, it was terror. Yet, for all her destructive power, USS New Jersey was also a living space for thousands of sailors. Men who slept in narrow bunks, ate hurried meals, stood endless watches, and trusted the ship with their lives. They were young, many barely out of training, yet they operated one of the most complex machines ever built by human hands. They trusted her armor, they trusted her guns, they trusted each other. And time after time, New Jersey justified that trust. This documentary is not just about battles and technology. It is about endurance, because USS New Jersey did something no other battleship ever did. She fought in World War II. She fought in Korea. She fought during the Cold War. She fought in the Gulf War. No other battleship can claim that record. She adapted while others were scrapped. She returned while others faded into memory. She refused to disappear, and that is why her story still matters today. Because in an age of stealth jets, drones and digital warfare, USS New Jersey represents something fundamental. A time when power was visible, when dominance was unmistakable, when a ship could change the course of history simply by arriving. This is the story of that ship, the steel giant that roared across oceans, the battleship that outlived her era, the American dreadnought. This is the story of USS New Jersey, BB-62. Before USS New Jersey ever fired a shot in anger, she was already the product of a hard truth the world had learned the painful way. War does not reward balance. It rewards overwhelming advantage. By the late 1930s, naval planners understood that any future conflict would not be decided by small skirmishes or limited engagements. It would be decided by who could strike harder, faster, and farther, and survive long enough to strike again. The battleship, long considered the king of the sea, was facing its greatest challenge. Aircraft carriers were rising. Submarines were becoming deadlier. Missiles and air power were beginning to change everything. So the U.S. Navy made a decision that would define an era. Like if the battleship was going to survive, it would have to evolve into something never seen before. That evolution became the Iowa class, and USS New Jersey was one of its finest expressions. The design philosophy behind New Jersey was brutally simple. No compromises. She had to be faster than enemy battleships. She had to outgun them. She had to survive hits that would cripple anything else afloat. Every line on her hull, every plate of armor, every compartment was shaped by that philosophy. At first glance, USS New Jersey looked sleek compared to older battleships. This was not an accident. Her hull was longer and narrower, allowing higher speeds without sacrificing stability. With powerful turbines generating more than 212,000 shaft horsepower, she could reach speeds exceeding 33 knots, faster than many destroyers of the era. That speed mattered. It allowed New Jersey to keep pace with aircraft carriers, escort them, protect them, and remain close enough to provide gunfire support when needed. Older battleships simply could not do that. They were powerful, but slow. New Jersey was both. Then there was the armor. Battleships lived or died by the thickness and placement of their steel. USS New Jersey's armor was layered like a fortress. Her belt armor measured up to 12.1 inches thick, angled to deflect incoming shells rather than absorb them directly. Her deck armor was designed to resist plunging fire, shells descending from long-range trajectories. Critical spaces, magazines, engine rooms, command centers were buried deep within layers of steel, separated by compartments designed to contain flooding and fire. This was not just protection. It was survivability engineering. The designers assumed New Jersey would be hit. They designed her to keep fighting anyway. But armor alone does not win wars. Firepower does. And this is where USS New Jersey became something else entirely. Her main battery consisted of 9 16-inch 50 caliber Mark 7 guns, arranged in 3 massive turrets. Each turret weighed more than a destroyer. Each gun could fire a shell weighing 2,700 pounds. When fired, those shells left the barrel at nearly 2,500 feet per second, traveling farther than the eye could see. At maximum range, a salvo could land over 20 miles away. At that distance, the shells would descend almost vertically, punching through concrete bunkers, steel reinforcements, and anything else unfortunate enough to be underneath. The psychological effect alone was devastating. Enemy forces often abandoned positions after the first bombardment. They knew what was coming next. The process of firing those guns was a ritual. In archival footage, we see sailors moving with practiced precision. Powder bags carried, shells lifted, breaches sealed. There was no chaos, no shouting, just procedure. Because one mistake inside a battleship turret could kill everyone inside. Each shot required coordination between dozens of men. Each salvo represented training, discipline, and trust. And when all 9 guns fired together, the sound was not just heard, it was felt. Sailors described it as standing next to a thunderclap. Observers miles away felt the concussion ripple through the air. The ship itself shuddered, as if momentarily resisting the violence it unleashed. Yet USS New Jersey was not just about the big guns. She carried a formidable secondary battery 5-inch dual-purpose guns, capable of engaging both surface targets and aircraft. These weapons formed a defensive ring around the ship, creating a wall of steel against incoming threats. In addition, layers of anti-aircraft guns, Bofors and Oerlikons, bristled along her decks during World War II, turning the sky around her into a lethal zone. She was designed to fight in every direction, above the water, across the horizon, and along the shoreline. The command systems that controlled all of this were state-of-the-art for their time. Fire control radars tracked targets beyond visual range. Spotter aircraft adjusted gunfire from the air. Commanders could coordinate salvos with astonishing accuracy, something earlier battleships could only dream of. USS New Jersey did not simply fire blindly. She calculated destruction. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of her design was how well she aged. Many ships are built for a specific war. Few are built to survive multiple eras. USS New Jersey was. Her structure allowed for upgrades, new electronics, new weapons, new systems, without compromising her core strength. This adaptability would prove critical in the decades to come, because long after many believed battleships were obsolete, New Jersey would return to prove them wrong. In black and white footage, her silhouette dominates the horizon. Low resolution, grainy film, but unmistakable presence. She looks less like a ship and more like a moving piece of architecture, a fortress set in motion. And that presence mattered, because in naval warfare, deterrence begins with belief. Belief that a ship can strike, belief that it can survive, belief that challenging it would be a mistake. USS New Jersey inspired that belief in allies and fear in enemies. She was not subtle, she was not hidden, she was meant to be seen. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon is not stealth, it is certainty. When USS New Jersey entered the Pacific, the war was already raging. The ocean was no longer a highway of commerce. It was a battlefield measured in aircraft ranges, island chains, and contested waters stretching thousands of miles in every direction. The Imperial Japanese Navy had built a reputation on surprise, speed, and precision. The United States Navy answered with something different, overwhelming force, and USS New Jersey was about to become one of its most devastating instruments. Her first combat deployments placed her at the heart of the Fast Carrier Task Force's massive formations built around aircraft carriers that struck deep into enemy territory. This was not the traditional battleship role. She was not hunting enemy dreadnoughts in classic line-of-battle engagements. Instead, New Jersey was adapting. She escorted carriers. She shielded them. She stood ready to destroy anything that came too close. In many ways, she became the bodyguard of American air power. In the vastness of the Pacific, carriers were vulnerable. They were powerful but fragile. Aircraft gave them reach but also made them prime targets. That is where New Jersey mattered most. Her radar scanned the horizon. Her guns stood ready. Her speed allowed her to reposition quickly, responding to threats as they emerged. And when American forces advanced island by island, her role shifted again. The Pacific War was not won solely in fleet engagements. It was won in brutal, grinding assaults against fortified islands, places like Kwajalein, Truk, Saipan, and Tinian. These were not just names on maps. They were hardened defensive zones layered with bunkers, artillery, caves, and concealed positions. Before Marines could land, something had to break those defenses. That something was naval gunfire. USS New Jersey moved into position offshore. Her guns elevated. Coordinates were calculated. Spotter aircraft orbited overhead. And then the order came. The first salvo tore through the air. 16-inch shells screamed across miles of ocean, slamming into enemy positions with earth-shattering force. Concrete shattered, steel twisted. Entire sections of coastline disappeared in clouds of smoke and debris. For troops watching from transports offshore, the sight was both terrifying and reassuring. This was what American naval power looked like. This was the sound of the path being cleared. Hour after hour, New Jersey maintained bombardment. Her gun crews worked relentlessly, loading, firing, adjusting. Inside the turrets, the heat was unbearable. The noise was constant. The danger was ever-present. But the mission was clear. Every shell fired meant fewer enemy guns waiting for Marines on the beach. Every minute spent bombarding saved lives later. In black and white footage, we see the rhythm of it. Gun barrels recoil. Smoke rolls across the deck. Crewmen brace themselves as the ship shudders with each blast. This was not cinematic warfare. This was industrial destruction. Methodical, precise, relentless. USS New Jersey was not improvising. She was executing doctrine perfected through years of training. Beyond shore bombardment, she continued her role as a carrier escort. When Japanese aircraft approached American task forces, New Jersey's anti-aircraft batteries joined the layered defense. Radar picked up contacts. Orders were given. Guns tracked targets invisible to the naked eye. The sky filled with tracer fire. While carriers launched fighters, battleships like New Jersey formed the last line of defense, ensuring that even if attackers broke through, they would not survive the attempt. Throughout 1944 and 1945, USS New Jersey remained in constant motion. She steamed across the Pacific, from operation to operation, rarely stopping. There were no victory laps, no long rests, only maintenance, resupply, and redeployment. The war demanded endurance, and New Jersey delivered it. As the conflict pushed closer to Japan itself, the scale of destruction intensified. Naval bombardments grew heavier, carrier strikes grew more frequent, the cost of every mile advanced became higher. Yet New Jersey continued to perform exactly as designed. Her armor absorbed the strain, her engines carried her forward, her guns spoke again and again. And then, gradually, the war began to shift. Japanese naval resistance weakened. Air power dominated the skies. The battleship, once thought to be eclipsed by the carrier, proved it still had a critical role to play, not as the centerpiece of fleets, but as the enabler of victory. When the war finally ended in August 1945, USS New Jersey was still at sea. She had survived without catastrophic damage. She had completed every mission assigned to her. She had justified every ton of steel, every dollar spent, every life risked to build her. For many ships, World War II would be the final chapter. For USS New Jersey, it was only the beginning. In the quiet that followed Japan's surrender, her guns finally fell silent. The smoke cleared. The ocean returned to its calm indifference, but something had changed. The world had entered a new era, and USS New Jersey, forged in total war, would soon be called upon again. Because history was not finished with her, not even close. She would fight in another war, and then another. She would be reactivated when others were scrapped. She would adapt when others became obsolete, and decades later, she would still command attention even in grainy black and white footage. Because some ships do not fade with time, they outgrow it. When the guns finally fell silent, the ocean did not celebrate. There were no cheers from the waves, no applause from the horizon. USS New Jersey simply slowed and kept sailing. She had done what she was built to do. She had crossed the world. She had shattered enemy fortifications. She had shielded carriers, supported landings, and survived a war that consumed millions of lives. And when World War II ended, she did not return as a relic. She returned as a survivor. Most warships are remembered for a single moment, a famous battle, a final stand, a dramatic sinking. USS New Jersey is remembered for something far rarer: consistency. Wherever the war demanded power, she delivered it. Wherever the fleet needed protection, she was there. Wherever American forces advanced, her guns spoke first. She was never the headline. She was never the symbol. She was the force that made victory possible. In the years that followed, many believed the age of the battleship had ended. They said steel could no longer compete with jets, that guns had no place in a missile age, that ships like New Jersey belonged only in museums. History would prove them wrong, because USS New Jersey would be called back again and again when power was needed without hesitation. Today, she no longer sails. Her guns are quiet. Her engines are still. Her decks are walked not by sailors, but by visitors. Yet her presence remains, because ships like USS New Jersey are more than machines. They are records of human resolve, proof that nations once built things not to intimidate, but to endure. She was not perfect, she was not subtle, she was not gentle. She was built for war, and she mastered it. And long after the smoke cleared, one truth remained: when the world needed certainty, when oceans demanded strength, when history required force, USS New Jersey answered.